Okay, to summarize what we did with the Oreo problem, we were constructing a confidence interval for a mean. The important ideas here are that we have to cover the conditions for sure. We have basically three conditions we have to look at. One is that our sample needs to be random. We talked about that in question 3 on the prior page. That was our condition number 1. Condition 2 is the 10% condition. We also talked about that on the prior page on section 5. In this case, we have 30 Oreos, so that satisfies, basically it satisfies the central limit theorem, and 30 Oreos is certainly less than 10% of all Oreos, so that is condition number 2. Condition number 3 is related to whether or not we can use a normal distribution. The population is approximately normal. We would expect that for mass production of Oreo cookies, but specifically to this problem, our sample size is 30, so we satisfy the conditions under the central limit theorem. If you had a smaller sample, you could look for, or you should look for, a strong skew or outliers. Actually, you should take all your data and graph it and see if it looks approximately normal. If there is a strong skew or there's outliers, you probably shouldn't use this method, or you could take out some of the data values, explain why you're taking them out, make sure it makes sense to do so, and then run it without those outliers. Critical value that we have for this is we use T critical value. That's what we're always going to use for means. DF is the abbreviation we use for degrees of freedom, which are necessary to get T values. The degrees of freedom is simply your sample size minus 1. We're going to use a T-table, which is actually on page 10 of your booklet. You always need to know your degrees of freedom, and you need to know the confidence level that you're interested in to get your T critical value. Now, all of this can be done with your calculator as well. Another way to get the T critical values, use inverse T. It works the same way as inverse norm did. You put in the area of your tail, but the new requirement is you have to put in degrees of freedom. So if you go to second distribution, inverse T is number 4. And what we want to do is put in the area of the tail. Now you can put in the lower tail, which is what I have here, 0.025, or you can put in the area all the way up to the upper tail, which would be 0.975. Remember, you have to divide that, for 95% confidence interval, you have to divide that 5% tail area between the two tails. But this would also work. Degrees of freedom are 29. That's our sample size minus 1. So we'll go ahead and put that in and then paste that. And it'll calculate our T critical value, 2.045. Now, so we can use that to get our T-score. Remember, this just substitutes the same thing we would do with our table B, which is on page 10. You can use either. The other thing that we can do on our calculator is actually the T interval itself. So I will go ahead and show you how to do this. Now you need to know how to do it all by hand as well, but you can certainly use your calculator to check your work. So if we go to Stat Tests, and we are going to do, I believe it's number 8, a T interval. So be careful, there's a lot of similarities in these names. T interval is what we're after. You can input the data or you can input the stats. I'm going to show it with the stats input, and actually I already have it all input in here, but you can follow along with this. X bar is our sample mean, our point estimate, 11.1921. Our standard deviation of our sample, 0.0817. Our sample size is 30, and our confidence level we want to use is 0.95. We'll hit calculate here. If you were using data, you would give list numbers in there. So here is our confidence interval, and you can see this matches ours exactly. It reiterates the x-bar and the standard deviation, but that's your interval that you can then interpret. Okay, so that is the summary that I wanted to give you. The next two problems are for you to check your understanding. I would like for you to try these on your own first without looking at the answers, and then you can come here to see how you did. Thanks. Have a great day.